welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. This is Zaib, and with me I have for yet another episode Zain. कैसे हो?
ठीक ठाक. What's going on?
Yeah, tonight's episode. I mean, we're recording at night, almost night for me. तुम्हारे तो रात ही हो रही होगी.
Yeah.
Is quite interesting क्योंकि मैं इस चीज पे तुमसे briefly बात की थी, and to be honest, um, I didn't really care too much about it initially, but I found it really interesting when I started reading about it.
Yeah.
Before I really get into that, do you have you had any instances where you were kind of following this? We're obviously talking about the lab leak theory, the origins of the novel coronavirus. Were you always on the boat of this is kind of like a man-made thing, bioweapon, conspiracy theories, ये वाली चीजें जो थी? Were you on that boat or?
Here's the thing. मसला ये है कि Chinese government जो है is the least transparent governing body or a government on earth basically.
ठीक है.
तो उसके उनके खिलाफ या उनसे मुतालिक कोई भी अगर थ्योरी बाहर आती है, it automatically has some credence because
it's China.
क्या?
Because it's China.
Because it's China, because they're so opaque. So I was never on board with it fully, but I think I was maybe on the fence because it's China and the government is completely opaque. There's no transparency. They've always been cagey. Or the funniest thing is कि China के जो state के वो जो representative होते हैं, I think a couple of people, regulars on Twitter, they're like always trolling. कोई भी credible बात करो ना कि यार was the virus originated? तुमने racism देख लो अपने मुल्क में. Why are you so jumpy? So they're like always trolling people.
इस पे मेरा opinion है और उससे बात करेंगे. We'll talk about that. But I wanted to get your thoughts and maybe share mine as well on.
But before that, let's just recap this lab leak theory.
Before we even do that, I just want to make sure that for our listeners, they're clear that we, at least for I don't consider coronavirus to be a hoax. Number one, I think it was a legitimate disease. It has legitimate issues, right?
Yeah.
Yes, origins.
First of all, I don't think it deliberately इसको engineer करके leak out किया गया.
और ऐसा भी नहीं है कि जो usually पाकिस्तान में अबे कुछ नहीं है, ये तो सिर्फ ये है अबे.
Yeah, no, it's legitimate.
And
I mean, there are two extremes, right? Some people are saying कि भाई कुछ नहीं है, it's the flu.
नहीं कुछ नहीं है, कुछ लोग कहते हैं कुछ नहीं है मतलब full stop, like it's nothing.
Yeah, कुछ नहीं है. Some people are saying कुछ नहीं है, it's a flu. Some people think it's a doomsday scenario. Truth usually is sort of somewhat between the two.
Right.
I mean, it's not the Black Death, right? It's not the plague.
It's not the plague.
Especially because of the fact that medical science is advanced. Okay, but it is dangerous, specifically if you are in certain groups, like if you are older, if you are overweight, if you're diabetic.
Medical, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
After medical,
it's not a joke. It's not a joke.
It's not a joke. So just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
But, okay, so moving on to the topic of the episode, which is the origins of the novel coronavirus, right? I'll give you my background as to why I am personally talking about it, and then I'll ask Zen why Zen wants to talk about it. I heard about this lab leak theory I think a year and a half ago, or maybe I think a year ago or so, when it was in the news thanks to the president at the time, Donald Trump. He talked about this leak in the lab, and obviously anything.
Tom Cotton spoke about it too.
Tom Cotton, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's Republican senators. You can't really take any like for any senator for that matter. You can't take them as subject matter experts unless they are actual doctors or scientists for that matter. But not all of them are. But anyway, my first reaction was, come on, like I didn't go into. To be honest, I didn't go into the details of their legitimacy of the claim.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't was because it was Trump, right? Trump is I'm not gonna fact check whatever he says, because if I do start doing that, I won't have a job, right? So that requires a job in itself. So that was my first interaction with this particular theory. Fast forward what was that? What's the start of this Monday? कौन सी वो थी? June, June 15th. Sorry, 14th.
Yeah.
Fast forward June 14th, 2021. ठीक है. I am watching the return of the Colbert Report. Sorry, Colbert Report. कह रहा हूँ मैं. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert back to their theater. Forgetting the name of the place.
Excellent.
The Ed Sullivan Theater. There you go. So Ed Sullivan Theater, they came back after a year and a half, whatever, right? So it was a big show, and obviously whenever Jon Stewart's on the show, I like to watch that show regardless, right? So Jon Stewart was the guest, and
Isn't he still the funniest guy? Like
he's
he's still, I think
un
he's still head and shoulders above
above any,
anyone on
yeah,
late
yeah,
night.
yeah. I think उसका एहसान है बहुत सारे comedians के पे कि
Yeah.
he's not out there. Otherwise, he would steal every one of their jobs.
Yeah.
Everyone, like,
He's still the best. Although when I grew up listening to him, I may have agreed with him maybe 80% of the time. Now it's a lot less, but I still think he's as funny, if not more.
oh,
I
and
still
then
am a huge fan of him.
and you can disagree with him, but
Yeah.
he's not a troll. Like, I don't consider him a troll. जिसमें होता है ना कि यार बिल्कुल ही
And I don't think he's a partisan hack as
how
well,
no, yeah, not
which I really appreciate, because late night TV is becoming, a
kind of
one trick pony. It is
predictable,
one trick pony. I mean,
right?
although I like some of those guys, but it's very predictable.
Very predictable. So he comes on the show. I am
Yeah.
eagerly, I am a fan of his show. Haven't looked at this time. I haven't looked at what has transpired on Twitter, because the show gets recorded in New York, and then it basically airs in New York 3 hours before it does in the West Coast. So it's
Yep.
already, like, the reactions are already in. I don't really see into that a lot, but I'm watching the show. I'm watching his bit, if you like, as a guest, right? He right off the bat starts talking about the lab leak theory, and then he just absolutely goes on this mini kind of rant,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay,
I don't think Colbert knew that this is what he's going
no,
to talk
I
about,
don't think he knew. Was his face
because
was
he
like,
was like kind of
he was like, are you really,
like,
what's
are you
happening
going to
here?
be crazy Uncle John? I was
But he
like,
can't. But he can't censor him, because that's his dad. You can't censor your dad, right?
he
And
can.
he's too big of a person. Even if he's not in showbiz anymore, technically, you can't censor Jon Stewart. That's just a big mistake. And then Steven, respects him, and they're good friends. So obviously, he was never going to do that anyway. So he let that, stay on air. I still feel like कुछ portions इसमें से redacted थे, cut थे,
I
which
think
okay,
so. I would
which is
definitely
fine.
think so.
One might argue कि एक show था, तो obviously it's not gonna be like full 100% तो नहीं वो करते. But चलो, anyway, we give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Sure.
So he starts talking about the lab leak theory, and then I was like listening to it, and I was like, okay, here comes the punchline. Maybe he's just gonna, because Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert they
Yeah.
both thrive, and their expertise sometimes is that they present these arguments as if they're their arguments.
Theirs, and then they completely blow it up. It's like it's like it builds up.
Satire, basically,
Yeah,
just as a
it's a
just a
report.
Colbert
Yeah.
report में नहीं था, जिसमें where he
Mhm.
becomes a right wing,
Yeah.
क्या कहते
It was
हैं.
like a persona, but it wasn't.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
person. I was like, oh, he's gonna give a persona. Here comes the punchline. He's good, but that punchline never came. And I could look at his face, and I was like, he means this. It's just,
Yeah.
he actually believes in this. Okay, and then naturally I was hooked. I was like, oh, okay. So this lab leak theory, Jon Stewart, who I consider, as I said, is an intellectual. He's not a scientist, but his opinions are well informed. You can disagree with him, but he's not like he's not waking up in one morning and deciding to make up this opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's thinking critically, and I mean, more importantly, he's not shilling from one side. So,
Yeah. So, but then he he goes on to this hilarious rant, which the Hershey's wala bit
His good,
that was
chocolatey goodness.
that was amazing. That was amazing.
That
I
was
don't know
very
how he
funny.
came up with that. It was just on top of his head. That's the genius of Jon Stewart. But that we'll probably need another
That's
episode to
like
just.
years of improv.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
We
And
probably need a
obviously,
separate
comedic
episode.
timing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We need a separate episode just to discuss his genius. But anyway, he talks about it, and I am hooked. I am like, at this point, I've lost interest in the show. At this point, I'm picking up my phone. I'm
Mm.
starting to read about the lab leak theory.
Yep.
So and the same time, I messaged Zan. I was like, Zan, do you know about the lab leak theory? Because I had read about it, a few articles here and there, and then I was like, okay, I can either do a solo episode on it, but I definitely needed someone to really bounce this off, right? And who better
Yeah.
than Zan to do that with? So That was my introduction to the lab leak theory, or a little bit of background. What about yours?
See, that it's always been in and out of the news.
Yeah,
So here's the thing. Initially, when it was in the news, it's more of a sort of a hilarious thing. Ke, yaar, dekho, these people are
it's
these
like
are
a movie script,
such
right?
nutters that they're saying कि भाई labs leak हुआ है.
It's like a movie, like a
And it was
movie
like
ke
it
script.
was a punchline for a joke, like
Uh,
this crazy uncle, orange man, whatever. He believes that
uh,
your labs leak हुई है. And even before him, like I said, Tom Cotton brought it up, and that's how I was exposed to it initially. But like a lot of the others, I was like, maybe because so much was happening around that time,
mm,
and the news cycle was like barely like 30 minutes around that time because of the
uh-huh.
coronavirus, and was dominating the news. So trust it really didn't stick around
Mm.
in the mainstream. But I heard it around that time, and there were news around that time. Okay, in November, May, people from the Wuhan coronavirus lab were getting into hospital and they were really sick, and weren't able to identify this infectious disease, stuff like that. But what I do remember was that the scientific community around that time, April, May, around the time
2020.
Donald Trump brought this up. Yeah. So what they did was, like, I think 20, 30, or 40 scientists, they penned this letter condemning this theory. This is, phobic. Let's never discuss it. And there is no credibility to it. And this is my problem, though. I mean, public health officials, I feel they've politicized their profession to an extent that public's faith is eroding. And I'm not just talking about right wing or left wing. I mean, whoever.
ठीक
And
है. I take your point. I
but
think
that's an aside. But that's how I
हाँ
heard
हाँ
about it.
हाँ हाँ ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है. तो उस पे हम जरूर बात करेंगे. तो at this point where 2020 अप्रैल में you are pro
Yeah, around
lab
that time.
leak,
And then
you're
it sort
pro
of
lab
faded
leak, or
from
you're
the
it faded from the news.
but
Nobody talked about it. Not
mainstream,
even
yeah,
the
until
right.
like maybe a month ago or something, right?
Yeah,
It
when
sort
I
of
think
reemerged.
Dr. Fauci's emails started to resurface,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I
I
mean,
think
it's probably
I
always on like
haven't
Reddit forums, but
I haven't honestly, I have personally haven't read the email thing. I tried to read it, but वो जो Wall Street Journal, sorry, New York Times पे जो article था जिस पे वो आया था, it kept asking me for subscription money, and I was like, fuck this, I can't.
yeah. The
और फिर
paywall is just a piece of
हाँ
just.
और किसी भी वेबसाइट पे आ नहीं रहा, तो I was like, fuck it, मुझे नहीं पढ़ना यार, क्या email में होगा,
I
मैंने
did
कुछ
read his messages, and I mean, I don't think there was something like sinister or devious in them, as a lot of
हाँ.
people might suggest.
I think he
But it
said
did
कि
show me
हाँ
how initially him and maybe a lot of other people, they changed their opinion on so many things as the disease evolved, and that's fine.
but that's fine, that's fine.
I can see the merit in it. It's a novel disease. People learn and then they change their opinion. Initially, he was anti-mask.
हाँ.
Later on, he became pro-mask, and that is fine. But to suggest that yaar, maybe there was something devious behind it, कि यार शुरू में तो anti-mask था, and then at the
That's
Washington
far fetched.
Capitals
हाँ,
game, he wasn't. I don't subscribe to it, but it was
that
interesting to see how his opinions evolved. And again, it's not his fault, but people just, a lot of people just put him on a pulpit कि भाई जो ये कह रहा है, it's
हाँ.
it's the truth. But the reality is more complicated than that, because even he contradicted and evolved his views, right?
ठीक है.
But that's again as an aside. But yeah,
चलो
I did read
लैब
some
लीक
of his
पे
messages.
लैब लीक पे थोड़ी सी बात करते हैं. Let's talk about what the
Yes.
lab leak theory actually
Yeah,
is. ठीक है.
exactly.
तो let me give like a brief overview. Correct me wherever I'm wrong. तुम बीच में intersect करना.
The
Let me know.
interesting thing is the lab leak theory has not. I mean, we don't know much details about it, and
हाँ,
the details have
जितना
not
मैंने
really changed.
right जितना मैंने
Yeah,
पढ़ा मैं वो बताऊंगा तुम्हें. This was an
yeah,
article on
exactly.
ABC News or something. I read it.
I think it was NBC or must have
Oh
it
yeah,
could have been
yes.
one of them.
हाँ, exactly. मैंने पढ़ा था. It was late at night, so I don't remember. But it had quite a lot of detail about what this theory actually is. So
Right.
here's the thing: coronavirus origins has a couple of theories, or a couple of origin stories, if you want. The one that we all know, कि वो bat वाली कहानी सर,
The
लेके
bad and all
it
that. Yeah.
originated from an animal, and then it uh, 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 transferred into a meat which a human consumed, and then
Consumed or was sold in
sold
the
in
Wuhan
the
meat
wet
market
shops,
or
yeah, the wet
whatever.
markets in Wuhan.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the usual story that we've heard and we all know about it. Lab leak theory is slightly different. Lab leak theory was ke 2012 May, 2012 May, if I'm not mistaken, 2012 May. What happened was there was a cleaning crew which went into this bat cave, which cleaning off the wastes of the bat who actually live in that cave, they caught some sort of an illness from that incident. So what happened was that I think five people were there, and three died, and two, were critically ill. So what happened, as you do, scientists and doctors in any community, as you do, when they come across such instances where people died in very unusual and certain circumstances, you go and research and you start to find out, okay, what this was. So the scientists from Wuhan, this lab, they go to this place. They take pieces of evidence, or like what do you call it, like, yeah, like virus or whatever, like the evidence of the
Yeah.
virus from the cave or the place where these people got sick and died, bring it back to the lab, and then they started studying it. So
Yep.
what we know, fast forward 2019, what we know then is that the construction or the components of the coronavirus that we know right now matches 95% of the original virus that was discovered in 2012.
Yep.
So therefore, what happened was, there is a possibility that while studying this escaped the lab, and then it got basically
Yeah. So there in Wuhan, I mean, as people who saw Jon Stewart's monologue, there is a coronavirus
virus.
lab,
Right, right.
and there's not just one type of coronavirus. They cataloged it
Huh.
and they study it there, as many countries do. They have
Dude, huh.
a lot of
SARS is one
these
of the COVID,
virology
yeah.
departments. Yeah, exactly. So they
SARS,
studied
huh,
it there,
huh.
and this particular strain or type of coronavirus is, I mean, as we all are realizing now, it is very easy to spread. It's very catchable.
It's like, yeah,
It's
18 times faster than a flu, something like that, or 20
yeah, yeah,
times, huh.
the
The
number of them that like
multiplication
off the
rate, huh,
charts.
just
Yeah, yeah.
insane, huh.
I think there's a specific sort of metric how they measure
Huh,
how
ऐसा कुछ,
fast it spreads,
right, right.
but it's a mathematical term. I am forgetting it, but anyways,
Huh,
that's neither here nor there. So the theory is, or that the lab leak theory involves that कि उस lab में किसी worker को लग गया, and then he unwittingly, or she or they, because apparently there were multiple who got
huh, infected.
infected by it at the same time, and they got out and it starts spreading. So that in of itself is not an unusual thing if you're working in a virology or a coronavirus lab.
Absolutely.
That's an occupational hazard, right?
Right.
But the real issue is the cover up. If indeed this actually happened and China actively covered it up, what they did was they buttoned their end up, but let it spread across Europe, Asia, and then eventually the United States, or the continental United States. Then it becomes an actual international scandal, right? Which is why, I mean, obviously, a lot of people are saying China should pay reparations and stuff like that, and I don't think it's going to intensify because of interwoven global financial interests people have with China. It's not an insignificant country, right?
It's not,
But
yeah.
yeah, that's where it has taken a completely different. It's gone into a
Perspective.
completely different, dimension or perspective.
Huh.
Exactly. So,
Right.
and if the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, actively covered this up, which right now seems to be, and I was reading some scientists. Actually, this guy, I think, what was his name? Nate Silver. He is. He forecasts election for the New York Times, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he's their chief statistician. I was reading somewhere he's saying now it's a 60% chance that the lab leak theory is in fact credible or actually happened.
Okay.
So
Acha. And right. And going back to the article that I read, right,
yeah,
it basically discussed the merits and demerits of the theory itself. So I wanted to dive into that more. One of the biggest merits of the story, as I suggested, कि तो जो virus की formation थी, जो initially discovered that 2012 में, and then what
right.
we know right now matches 95%. So that's big, the
Right.
number one. Number two, कि ये story जो थी, जो लोग मरे थे, that's a factual story. It's not like कोई myth नहीं है कि लोग मरे
Mhm.
and blah, blah. It's a factual
And
story.
even the story around November 2019 hospitalization of people from Wuhan lab, that's again a fact that's been.
It's a fact. It's a fact. Right.
It's been vetted by U.S. intelligence officials, the community, and all that.
Exactly,
stuff, yes.
exactly. तो ये सब चीजें exist करती हैं, और the number three, which I consider biggest of them all, is when the World Health Organization, as you know, they went back to Wuhan. I think earlier this year probably,
Yeah.
to investigate this, basically investigate the lab leak theory. Uski report jo aayi thi, usme they didn't conclude that this actually happened, number one, so I'll give him that. But more importantly, they didn't completely write off the whole thing. They didn't say, oh, this is
Which is big, because given the fact that they were allowed in China, I'm pretty sure they actually had a look at the report before, like, okay, you can release it.
of course, of course, and
It's
then
not like
also,
IAEA in Iran, right? It's not like
right,
that.
right, exactly. And then also, given the evolution of, as you mentioned, wo jo letter tha, which the scientists at the time signed when Trump was president,
Yeah.
condemning this theory to be eh, phobic and blah blah blah. So to go from there to now, they're not completely saying, you know what, there might be some credibilities in there.
Yeah.
So
Without the facts actually changing on the,
on the,
on the face of thing, there must be something
there must be
significant that's
something.
been, yeah, there
There
has
must
been
be something.
something.
But
Yeah.
now I want to talk about why this theory stinks a little bit, right? And I would like to go back to the original reason why I didn't pay too much attention to it, which was number one, Donald Trump. Now, not because the guy, but I think the context through which Donald Trump brought it up at the time. Donald Trump didn't bring it up in some town hall meeting or a show where they were discussing how did we get here, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, if he was probably doing that, that theory would have taken a completely different face. And
Maybe.
yeah, exactly. But he took that, he brought it up, especially, I'm pretty sure some intelligence community from the government probably would have shared that with him as president, as they all normally would. And then he stupidly brings it up in like a press conference or something and says, this comes from China, blah, blah, Kung flu, Chinese flu, blah, blah, jo bhi bola.
But yeah, in his typical style, he sort of let it hang. They're saying. He always does that. They're saying it might have come from
a
a
lab
lab
leak,
in
blah, blah.
China. So
But
it wasn't
uh,
textbook kind of way of actually, letting it out or trying to sort of give it credibility. Of course, and
right.
Donald
But
Trump
I
has
think
never been.
even if he had done a very educated like approach, if he had given an educated approach to it, he would still I think fall short, because personally I thought he was trying to deflect off the failure of the government. As we all know,
I mean,
United
I
States.
think, yeah, he was in a complete blind panic at that time.
हाँ,
And
तो वो
even I
government.
think even if he reported this theory in a more measured way, his relationship with the media was damaged beyond repair. Even at that point, no
Even
one
at
would
the
have carried it.
no one exactly. So I think number one, to the messenger Donald Trump,
The messenger was a big issue,
the
100%.
messenger was a huge
Even
issue.
though the message does have some credibility, as it turns out,
Credibility,
but
yes, and then also I think going back to it, if I was thinking कि Zaib अगर ये Obama बोलता, would you would have believed him? And my honest reaction would have been no. I would still not have believed him. Why? Because the United States establishment would go to whatever lengths they want to go to pressurize a foe like China on the world map.
yeah, sure.
So there are, as Zan mentioned as well, there are a complex web of international supremacy and relationships. National, क्या कहते हैं उसे, national क्या कहते हैं, national
Like, interest or business
interest. There you
interest.
go. There, that exactly, national interests involved. तो 100% उस पे believe करना और उस पे बिल्कुल ही आमीन कह के आगे बढ़ जाना, that I don't believe in that.
I
So
mean,
that's why.
generally, I mean,
हाँ,
you take it with a pinch of salt when
एग्जैक्टली
a
तो मेरा सबसे
president or
बड़ा
politicians believe.
प्रॉब्लम इज दैट कि ये तो ये प्लस नाउ अब जब इस पे बात हो रही है, एंड देन पीपल हु आल्सो से कि यार बिकॉज इट्स चाइना एंड इट्स अ क्लोज गवर्नमेंट, नोबडी नोज, लाइक ट्रांसपेरेंसी इशू नहीं है, यस, बट देन if we are going to go with impressions of governments, if you want to go with impressions of governments and take news from them based on that, then the United
Yeah.
States doesn't really fall in any credibility at all, right?
Well, yeah, why is United States the beacon of credibility and
Exactly.
trustworthiness?
So why
Not.
should I
I mean,
even
its
exactly, why
record
should,
is as bad as the Chinese government.
absolutely, you can say whatever you want about the Chinese. They're, yes, they're closed, yes, they don't have certain level of openness towards media and international media, people can go in and whatever,
Right, but at least they
but
didn't
that
fuck
is
up the Middle East for the past 50 years.
right,
So.
but that doesn't get us anywhere. That doesn't mean anything, right? Because United States, with all of its like freedom of press, is like causing havoc in the region for years and years. So मेरा सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम इस थ्योरी के साथ ये था कि यार मैं अगर यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स की थ्योरी को बिलीव भी करता हूँ, तो और बेस्ड ऑन द रीजन कि यार बिकॉज इट्स द चाइनीज गवर्नमेंट थोड़ा फिशी सीन होता है ये वो, तो मैं कहता हूँ यार फिर मैं यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स की गवर्नमेंट को बिलीव करूँ, वो कौन से लाइक साफ सुथरे हैं दूध की तरह, राइट? तो दैट वाज माय नंबर। तो उस वजह से आई डिडंट रियली पे टू मच हीट टू इट। एंड देन आल्सो आई थिंक कि वो जो फिंगर पॉइंटिंग थी फ्रॉम क्या कहते हैं, फिंगर पॉइंटिंग थी टुवर्ड्स चाइना एट द टाइम, आई थिंक दैट वाज मोर फ्रॉम लाइक हे आई डिडंट फक दिस अप, दिस हैपेंड फ्रॉम समवेयर एल्स। तो वो वाला उसके अंदर एलिमेंट मुझे लगा, which is why I didn't, I was like यार that is neither here nor there. If you had stopped the spread of the virus, if you had given like a much more measured response to the virus, maybe 6 lakh people wouldn't have been dead in the United States. तो वो उस वजह से मुझे थोड़ा सा उस तरफ जाता हुआ दिखा. But as far as I think personally, I feel the theory is concerned, I think it does have a lot of weightage, and I'm not sure if we will ever be able to get to the bottom
I
of
don't.
it.
That's the thing. We'll never be able to completely, conclusively say.
How
And
did it spread?
my bigger concern is, चने भाई आपने मान लिया इस बात को कि लैब से लीक हुआ है, सबने मान लिया, and you're actually completely sure about it. What can you do next? What are you gonna do? What are steps governments not can take or willing to take to counter this? Like, I don't think anyone is, right?
I don't think so.
The US government most certainly will not.
Like, what do you really want? What do you want the country to pick the check up for the vaccines now? Like vaccine bill ka check
I don't know. I mean,
was that what?
can they pressure the Chinese into reparations? That's never going to happen. But
That's never gonna happen.
Still, yeah. I mean, it's not going to happen. But still, I mean, can you put some kind of pressure on China? I don't think anyone can, because, like I've said, there's
Because
so many
everyone is so
business interests.
everyone is so fucked up who are opposing them. Like you have your Russias, you have your United States, you have your European Union.
And United States is not the arbiter of what's right and truth in the world anymore. So they don't have any leadership. And United States, I mean, they lost that leadership position in the world. They created that vacuum that the Chinese gladly filled.
And the Russians, for that matter, too.
And Russia, I mean, who the hell do you want to blame for it? Nobody. And the thing is, you're not in a position of strength anymore. You can't really press China, even though it turns out, or it's becoming more likely, that it was their fault in a way that they let this virus sort of spread, even though they were in the position to maybe control it a little better.
What are the numbers like? Do you think how much did China suffer from this? Even if we say it was like their own mistake,
100,000, something like that.
Like, so United States suffered. I mean, cases or people dead?
No, I think the cases, the people dead must be like in like single thousands.
What? Really?
In China. I mean, that's their official count. I actually want to look it up right now, because I remember looking this up months ago.
So United States have like 7-8 times more people dead here.
Okay, so see, I was close. So 91,000 total cases, and 4,600 dead. 91,000 cases,
what?
4,600 dead in China.
In the whole of China?
In the whole of China, the most populous country in the world.
So Pakistan में कितने लोग मरे? 3,000?
No. Pakistan may say like way more than China. Let me see.
So you're telling me a country where like you have
Pakistan may 950,000 cases and 22,000 dead.
So it's like what's that?
I mean, इन लोगों ने like उर्दू में कहते हैं ना, नकल में भी अकल चाहिए होती है. Like at least make it sound realistic. Like Chinese like हमने तो भाई नहीं, मैंने 100 मारे. 100 में 100 लाया हूँ मैंने.
4600 तो ऐसा लग रहा था वुहान में मरे होंगे सिर्फ.
Yeah. I mean, and it was under strict lockdown, stuff like that. So they must have. I don't think they put people under the strictest kind of lockdown for like 200 cases a day or something like that, right?
Yeah. I think that's bullshit. I don't personally, it doesn't really make sense. 4,600 deaths in a country full of 3 billion people with a virus that killed millions around the world.
And it initiated in a very densely populated city.
Exactly. So, Wuhan is a huge city, and I found out about Wuhan after when this unfortunate event happened. We discovered
it's a very densely populated city. So
industrial city, man.
We know what happens in densely populated countries when the virus spreads. Take
India.
Look at what happened in India or happening in India, right? So,
yeah.
So India में एक आधे दिन में जितने cases आए जितने China में so far in the entire pandemic, right?
Oh
It's
fuck.
insane. So it's like it's not even
So that kind of, you know, if
it's not even scantily believable. So
so it kind of like, you know, I can understand the frustration of if you are United States or, you know, in England or, you know, United Kingdom or any of the European countries. I can understand I can understand the frustration if I'm fucking Italy, man. Like Italy was ravaged through this, and they
in
must be
Italy, I
thinking
mean, even
that
before that, they can't seem to agree on
they were broke, weren't
a
they?
stable government. They're
Yeah.
broke. They have been subject of internal quarrels. Like it's like you know, Israel में जिस तरह coalition government बन रही है और बिखर रही है. Italy has done a masters in that for the past 10 years. So they're completely
Italy,
unstable.
Italy is
और
like
उसके
90s में
बाद
Pakistan
yeah yeah
minus the
exactly.
coups.
So yeah, like there's a Wasim Akram camp, there's a Baqa Yunus camp. So it's like that.
Exactly.
So Italy is, I mean, going the direction of Greece,
Oh yeah. Greece is
fortunately,
even
but
horrible. Yeah,
and then they
Greece.
were like ravaged, of course. So there is a lot of, I mean, there should be a lot of anger or frustration because, I mean, the countries you can say obviously they didn't take immediate action, but just came out of nowhere. And the only country that actually had an inkling of what was going on was China, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And
but
and and then also, so going back to the theory, what is the most compelling point of the theory that you feel like, yeah, you know what, that really tips me off to actually believe it? What do you think is the one thing
the
that really
theory
gives?
in itself, I mean, it if you look at it, I mean, it doesn't have a hook, right? Okay, yeah, see, this is
It's a
the
boring
smoking gun.
theory. It's a boring theory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no like smoking gun per se, right?
Mhm.
But if you look at what transpired after and what the reaction of the Chinese government has been to it, that makes it more compelling. And the fact that, as Jon Stewart said, they literally have a lab there which actually stores, catalogs, studies the SARS coronavirus, and that's the family of those viruses, right?
Mhm.
So it becomes highly likely
Yeah,
that,
yeah, how can you
and
expect that
who's to
they,
say that they're actually following strict standards of lab safety there? I don't
maybe
know.
they are, right? Maybe they
Maybe
are.
they're. That's
But
the thing.
then
We don't know.
But does that mean that you can't really spread viruses from a very strict lab? Of course you can. Like
You
that's
can, of course. I mean, only
it's not a
one person
given.
has to fuck up, basically,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly. One person has to have.
I mean, as the end of the share, he's like, I don't want to go through this checklist, whatever, right?
Yeah, I
Things
mean,
happen.
come
Things can
on.
happen.
It can easily happen. You forget to wash your hand one time. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we've been in this pandemic for 15 odd months, right? You're telling me for one time you didn't go out and maybe didn't wash
Yeah,
your
I
hands?
mean, if you
Like,
think
come
about
on.
it, it's funny that it's possible that one dude forgot to wash his hand, and as a result,
Everyone has
people
to wash
are
their hands.
like sanitizing, like using billions of gallons of
अच्छा,
sanitizer for the
वो
next
जो
five
बिलियन
years,
से आता
basically.
है, बिलियन से आता है, एक और थ्योरी थी उसमें कि which I like ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं पढ़ा मैंने, but I just, you know, glanced over it. This whole about the PPE thing, उसके बारे में पता है तुम्हें?
No, actually, no. What is
कि
that?
the I think prior to the coronavirus, a lot of companies like invested and hoarded a lot of PPE. Countries, you know, did that, and then when the coronavirus spread, you know, they profited off of it. ऐसा भी तो हुआ है, ऐसा नहीं है?
I mean, I don't know. The
क्योंकि
theory
ये
that
वाली
I've
theories
heard,
भी
the
हैं.
conspiracy theory I've heard is that, big pharma has benefited the most, stuff like that. You
But
hear
Big
about it.
Pharma hasn't, I don't think, benefited the most. I think Big Pharma is, yes, obviously that's the most
I
obvious
mean,
theory you would make.
if you
हाँ,
look at like Pfizer
हाँ,
and
तो obvious theory है, तो like it's like
Moderna,
kept an obvious
obviously,
theory है कि हाँ,
yeah,
obviously pharma would benefit from a pandemic, duh. But like
yeah.
they're not gonna create a pandemic. They're not that powerful, right? So you need
Yes,
so many
I
players.
think that's the thing. People overestimate the authorities' ability to orchestrate something this effectively.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I mean, people like overestimate the United States governments or their
Oh yeah.
intelligence ability. Like they look at their actual track record. Look at the Bay of Pigs, right? This
हाँ,
is the country that orchestrated the Bay of Pigs, which is one of the biggest intelligence fuck ups in history.
right.
Or the क्या कहते हैं, Afghanistan war. Their track record in
Iraq War.
actually Iraq war or Vietnam, like
हाँ.
it's a dime a dozen. Their track record of actually doing something that they've set out to do and plan to do is abysmal. So that's why it's more of their capability as opposed to willingness, which is why I don't believe it's like a big brother world government orchestrated thing. I mean, some people are saying to reduce population, reduce global warming. Those are just
Wild theories. They
fringe,
actually.
wild like theories, but they're there. And circumstances like these, they fuel these theories because I guess that's what
How can
human
we
beings enjoy.
how can we talk about Jon Stewart in an episode, and then you also mentioned Iraq and not talk about that famous
Yeah,
interview
yeah.
he did
Which
with the.
reminds me, I think the Bush presidency, although it was the worst thing for the entire world, was the golden period of late night satire comedy.
Oh
Honestly,
yeah,
nothing
but
matches.
do you remember that that interview that Jon Stewart did with the New York Times writer who actually broke the weapons of
The
mass,
Iraq one,
mass yeah, the weapons of
I,
mass
I,
or something.
I don't remember him, but
That's yeah, the interview when he got actually
for some
pissed.
reason, I always remember
Other
that
was a
Kramer
journalist
interview,
Kramer.
the Jim Kramer interview,
कौन सा वाला?
the Money Matters guy.
Oh
क्या
yeah,
नाम
yeah,
था
yeah. नहीं नहीं वो तुम्हें एक और
उसका?
बताऊंगा मैं तुम्हें I don't know if you remember but I'm sure हमने डिस्कस किया था ये जिसमें वो न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स की जो जर्नलिस्ट थी वो आई थी with her book and she actually broke the news about the weapons of mass destruction.
WMDs, yeah.
Uh, and Jon Stewart obviously a huge proponent of not going to Iraq. ठीक है? And then he was the biggest like uh, advocate of that whatever happened in Iraq was an absolute massive fuck up from our side, like the United States side. So he actually grilled her to an extent where I could see first time, and this I think was his last season जिसमें ये इंटरव्यू हुआ था आई कुड सी फर्स्ट टाइम को जो क्रैक होता है थोड़ा सा लाइक फोर्थ वॉल एंड यू कैन सी हिम एब्सोल्युटली पिस्ड एंड में भी उसमें होता है ना कि he basically reintroduces the book and says you know fala book is on shelves
Yeah, read
starting
it, yeah.
Friday. It's like he just like he was like completely fucked. मैं तुम्हें इसकी लिंक भेजूंगा but that interview basically gives you an idea that that guy is just not there to make jokes. He actually reads his
Yeah, I
book.
mean, I think a lot of the guests they made that mistake. Yeah, it's going to be a stroll in the park. It's a
Oh
comedy
yeah.
show, but they
Oh,
actually got grilled, right? It's tougher than most. It's
wasn't
tougher than
Musharraf
any Meet the President.
wasn't Musharraf on there too one time?
Yeah, yeah, 2006. That actually was a very good interview. He
Very
did a
good
great
interview.
job.
He
He did
did
a
a
really good job.
fantastic.
He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
promoting In the Line of Fire.
In the line
Again, a
of
good book.
fire.
Excellent book. Excellent book.
Right. I remember. Like if you can handle Jon Stewart, who really doesn't really give a two shits who you
Yeah,
are.
yeah. And Jon Stewart didn't throw him any softballs, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He didn't
He
have
didn't
nothing
throw
to
him.
lose. Like why would Jon Stewart throw softballs to a Pakistani president?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
he
So
would go hard ball on him, and he did. And
yeah. I mean, Jon
um,
Stewart has given it to all the mainstream politicians. Obama, Pelosi. He's criticized like everyone, even on his side of the aisle, because he
oh
is a
yeah, I
liberal,
think he
right?
does most of that because उसकी ज़्यादा हटती उसी चीज़ पे थी कि यार तुम लोग
You
जो
guys should know better or
you
whatever,
guys
right?
should know better. You guys should do better. So anyway, so that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Any last words before we end this episode about the lab leak theory and the
I
origin?
just want to say that people should, I think, and this is not like a rant or a lecture. I just think people should, uh, even more so now than ever, should develop the ability to think critically and look at competing sources, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think what's happening right now is people have such a massive confirmation bias on both sides of the aisle, right? You believe something, so you all only read from people or news outlets that actually reaffirm that view.
right.
I think people should start challenging themselves,
Hmm.
whatever views they hold, and it might either strengthen that view or actually lead them to the right place. So, which is why it's important in the context of the lab leak theory, right?
Yeah,
Don't blindly believe everything you're hearing. Look for contrarian views, even if something appears to be completely factual. Try looking at views that oppose that and make up your mind then.
ठीक है.
That's all I want to say, but I think that really helps in developing critical thinking and sort of stops you from making knee-jerk decisions or reactions. So
Opinions. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree
exactly.
with that. I think I'll be the first one to admit that I should have read about this before Jon Stewart brought it up. So I actually had, if people were looking outside, like in a word from outside, would probably say, okay, it required someone from your own quote unquote camp to bring it up for you
Right.
to read it up. So I admit that, but I think one point that you actually mentioned, completely resonates with me. And I've made that point various episodes on the podcast as well. is that if you feel like your opinion is based on truth and logic and reasoning, and if you feel like what you believe is the right
It should
thing,
stand scrutiny. Yeah.
it should stand scrutiny. Then it means, okay, bring it on. Like, challenge it as much as you, because at the end of the day, are you trying to defend that idea, or are you trying to look for truth? Because I think deep
Yeah.
down inside, technically, we all should be looking for truth.
Looking for truth. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
if we are hashtag team,
Rather than just confirming our biases, we should
ah,
just
yeah, yeah,
so
look for truth. Like, if that, so what if it ends up changing your opinion? So what if you end up believing whatever or whatever Donald Trump said, right? It doesn't matter. Don't
matter.
look at the messenger. Don't look at the messenger. Look at the message and try and critically analyze it. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biases, we that's the knee jerk reaction, and we try and confirm our biases. I think that's what we should at all times try and separate ourselves from, and actually
Yeah.
make up our opinion based on facts and logic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it for the episode.
I think the
Subscribe.
next one is going to be a lot lighter in nature
Oh
on the
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. This one's kind of light. It wasn't too heavy, but I think it was an important discussion, a very educated discussion.
Yeah, just as long as it makes people think a little bit,
Yeah,
why not?
absolutely. All right, man. Thank
All
you.
right.
We'll be back with another one. So stay safe and take care. Cheers.
All right. See you.